Today we continue on with our NHL GM Report Card series, reviewing the offseason moves and grading the work of the NHL GMs. We only have a few teams left before we wrap up and move on to season previews. Today we look at the Nashville Predators, the big spenders of the offseason, and GM Barry Trotz, and that's coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have another GM Report Card series video to do here today, looking at the very busy and the big spenders, the Nashville Predators. Barry Trotz, I think, surprised a lot of people, not only making, some big moves, but a lot of big moves this offseason. The Predators are a completely revamped team. Looking at them the last couple of years, you thought they were kind of slowly going into a rebuild mode. And then with the reluctance to trade UC Saros, you kind of wondered, what direction is this team going? If they're not moving Saros and bringing up their young goalie Askarov, where are they heading? And then they just completely shocked everybody and went out and were big-time spenders and got some of the big-time free agents in this year's crop. So let's take a look at the trades they made, the signings they made, look at how their lineup looks now, compare who left versus who's coming in, and grade the work of GM Barry Trotz. So trade-wise, gets started pretty early. Even well ahead of the draft, they traded Ryan McDonagh and a 4th-round pick to Tampa for a 2nd and a 7th. Of course, McDonagh was kind of forced traded out of Tampa a few years ago. Ended up going to Nashville, was one of the teams that he was happy to go to because he did have a lot of trade protection in his contract. And he had talked to Barry Trotz at the end of the season and said that he thought it was time for him to get a fresh start, and that if he could go back to Tampa, if there's any way to make that happen, that he would be very grateful. Well, Trotz obviously called Brisebois and made it happen. So McDonagh goes back to Tampa, which is kind of, if you look at all the other moves that Nashville's made, I wonder if Ryan McDonagh could have seen all that coming. Would he have wanted to leave? And really, makes you wonder how Nashville feels about everything now. But McDonagh was traded at the end of the day. That's a done deal. They also traded Igor Afanaseyev to the San Jose Sharks for Ozzy Weisblad. Kind of a swap there of younger players trying to find their way. They did move Cody Glass as well as a 3rd and a 6th rounder to Pittsburgh for a prospect. So Cody Glass gets moved. No big surprise there. He's still trying to find and solidify himself. Hopefully the Penguins, who certainly want to add more youth to their lineup, can incorporate him in and it can help him find success. And then, of course, one of the bigger trades of the offseason, they traded one of the top goalie prospects around the NHL, Yaroslav Askarov, who had made it known publicly that he wanted a trade and wanted out. He was not going to report to the American Hockey League any longer, at least with Nashville. Gets traded along with Nolan Burke and a 3rd-round pick to the San Jose Sharks in exchange for 3 pieces. They get a San Jose 1st-rounder. They also get David Edstrom and Magnus Krona. So essentially, actually, that 1st-round pick is going to belong to Vegas as well. That is the San Jose compensation that they received in the Tomas Hertl trade, essentially flipped to Nashville for Askarov. So they did pretty well in the return. Getting a quality, former 1st-rounder like Edstrom, and then another 1st-round pick as well. And Krona's a decent prospect goalie as well. Somebody who they can put in their system and won't be as rushed to try to make it to the NHL. I think Barry Trotz did well under the circumstances, considering he really wouldn't have had a lot of leverage, considering how much was known publicly about that situation. But obviously they moved McDonagh. They get the cap space back, which was clearly, I guess that's the other part of this as well, is knowing what Barry Trotz did in free agency is he wouldn't have been able to do all that with the McDonagh contract on the books. So that was also not only a cap dump for Nashville, but it was honoring the request of McDonagh himself. So all in all, I think that's a win-win. The Afanaseyev and Glass trades are kind of a wash, trying to get some fresh starts. And then I think he did well on the Askarov deal, considering where things are at. Then we go into the signing season. Some of it call it the silly season, and Nashville certainly made some moves that maybe we'll look back on and say they were silly moves, but some of them right now look to be pretty darn good. They got goaltending shopping done. They found a backup to UC Saros, bringing in Scott Wedgwood, formerly of the Dallas Stars, 2 years at $1.5 million. Clearly, they didn't even see Askarov as ready for full-time duties as a backup, so bringing in Wedgwood and the Saros extension, which was 8 years at 7.74. it blocked his path to the NHL even as a backup goaltender. Obviously, Cerro's contract was arguably the biggest of all, being the 8-year mega contract for the All-Star goaltender. So, 7.74, obviously 74 is his number, and found a way to incorporate that into the deal. Then, like I said, Wedgwood at 2 years, 1.5. They really solidified the goaltending tandem. I have no problem with either contract. Cerro's has earned a big deal like that, and Wedgwood is certainly a more than capable backup. They signed Alex Carrier. There was some question marks of whether or not he would return, but he did sign 3 years at 3.75. Jonathan Marchessault, they get him out of free agency out of Vegas, 5-year deal at $5.5 million. A bit of a late blooming forward, but ever since he got to Vegas, he's done very well. Conn Smythe Trophy winner a couple years back, and another guy like Stamkos, who we'll talk about here in a minute, who got big time lowballed by his team, even though he was such an important piece there. But they tried to work on deals, but they weren't really willing to pay up, at least not in the traditional standard kind of contract way. There was some talk about Marchessault's contract in Vegas having some referred money and all that. So being paid in the future, like the Seth Jarvis deal, deferring to her down the road. But Marchessault didn't seem to want anything like that, and obviously it was kind of complicated and still wasn't not a really justifiable, decent contract offer according to what we've heard. Brady Shea signs on a 7x7 deal, 7 years, $7 million per year, coming over from Carolina. Carolina was never going to pay him that kind of money. Good puck mover, good offensive defenseman, good skater. So obviously he'll come in and likely pair up with Yossi, or at least definitely play a lot of top 4 minutes and be a really good puck mover there. So Brady Shea, great pickup. Steven Stamkos, really going to be weird to see him in a different uniform outside of Tampa. Another case of a star player, longtime captain, did so much for that franchise and just got lowballed. Hard to imagine how that could happen, but it did. And so Nashville scoops him up, 4-year deal, $8 million per season. Again, with these free agent contracts, maybe we'll look back on them, maybe they won't work out, but right now they actually look pretty good to me. I think they look fair. Stamkos and Marchessault are, obviously a bit older, so they're not getting 8-year deals at this point. They're, 4 and 5 year deals, a little bit different. If they can get, at least, if Marchessault can get at least 3 to 4 years in there and Stamkos can get at least 3, then they're not going to care as much. Shea, obviously, he's a little younger than those guys, so the 7-year deal should work out. They're bringing over some other depth as well. Nick Blankenburg, 2 years league minimum. Vinny Hinostroza, 2 years. Jake Lucchini, 2 years, all league minimum, 2-way deals. Kiefer Bellows, of course. Bellows knows Trotz from the time with the New York Islanders. Gets another opportunity. He'll likely be in the minors again, 1 year, 2-way deal. Spencer Stastny gets 2 years at $825. He'll likely be able to compete and grab a spot in the third pair there. Obviously guys like him and Dante Fabro. Then you got Lauzon, Carrier. Those are all, second and third pair defensemen that are going to be fighting it out in training camp. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody gets moved, maybe, and Fabro might turn out to be that guy. We'll have to see. So those are all your signings. So, kind of summarizing your addition, subtraction coming in, you get some big names: Stamkos, Marchessault, Shea, Wedgwood, Blankenburg, these other youngsters that have come over, Bellows, Lucchini, Hinostroza, but Wedgwood obviously is on that list as well. Obviously, like I said, lots to like. Going out, though, you've got McDonough and Tyson Barrie on the back end, not back. Cody Glass has moved. Skarov, who was not in the NHL yet. Jason Zucker, who had come over throughout the season as a trade deadline acquisition. And Liam Foudy. There's really nothing substantial going out. The only really player that was moved out that has the potential of doing some damage elsewhere is Askarov, and he's an unproven star. So, long term, they may regret that. We'll have to wait and see. That's a long time down the road to really see how that works out. But all in all, it's hard to imagine that this team, didn't get substantially better. You're looking at a top 6 in the forward group of O'Reilly, Nyquist, Forsberg, maybe Marchessault and Stamkos play with Novak, or you can move O'Reilly, Novak around. And Tommy Novak, I think, is going to have an opportunity to be a much better player as well because he's going to play with some higher end talent. At least it looks that way. Your bottom 6 could be a bit better. They got guys like Sissons, Evangelista. I do like Evangelista's game. He should be good. Jankowski, maybe Cole Smith, McCarron, Parsonen. Hard to say who makes up those final spots there, but that's the only area of the team that they're probably going to want to add and improve later on. Back end, you're looking at Shea, Yossi, Lauzon, Carrier, Stastny, Shen, Fabro. Your goaltending, of course, is Saros and Wedgwood. This team has certainly gotten better. There's no doubt about it. I think they've gotten drastically better. They're going to be a lot more offensive of a team, that's for sure. They've added some big-time offensive weapons from the back end with Shea and Stamkos and Marchessault up front. Their power play should be pretty good. They locked up their all-star goaltender and brought in a very capable backup for him. The only thing I do wonder is the back end. I mean, your second and third pair, there's a lot more defensive-minded guys there, which is fine. I do wonder about puck movement amongst those tandem pairs. Shea and Yossi are going to log a lot of minutes, though, and they are going to be really strong at that. So, it's not the end of the world. But that might be... When we get closer to the end of the year, like trade deadline, I would suspect they're going to maybe want maybe a depth defenseman and see if they can't improve that fourth line. That would probably be my guess. We'll see what they have for cap space, obviously, at this point. But they went big game hunting. They were successful. They made this team exciting. I'm sure the fan base is, pumped with the moves they've made to see Stamkos, Marchessault, Shea, Wedgwood, all these guys coming in are going to get, huge fanfare. And they're definitely going to be, more competitive. I mean, that Central Division, if you look at it, you think like Colorado, Winnipeg, Dallas, they're all going to be right there. Well, Nashville's going to be, and last year they were not that far off, and they should be even better this year. So I'm going to give Barry Trotz a grade of an A-. I think he's done tremendous work here. I think he was... going into this offseason, I'm not sure a lot of people expected the levels that we've seen. I know I didn't, not to that level. So, all in all, I really like his work, but there's certainly some risk involved, given the fact that all these stars are, they're not super young anymore. So will they still be able to bring it to the levels we've seen with their old clubs? I suspect they can, because they haven't really shown signs of any serious regression at this point. So I think for the first few years, these deals are going to work well, and this team is going to be very competitive. The other thing with Marchessault and Stamkos, I think they both felt some disrespect and slightus from their previous teams. I think they're going to play with a little bit of chip on their shoulders to show that, hey, I still got it here. My old team made a big mistake by letting me go. And I think they're going to be extra motivated on top of their regular level of motivation to do well. So I think Nashville is going to be a very, very interesting team to watch. And if you take a look at this Central Division, considering, like I said, you've got a team like Colorado with a lot of question marks around it, Nichushkin, Landeskog, then Winnipeg, obviously, are they going to be the same team that we saw last year? Dallas, Nashville can likely be holding down a top 3 spot in that Central Division if they get off to a good start with all these players, hopefully coming out of the gate strong. So let me know what you think on the Nashville Predators offseason. In the comments, we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.